Everyone, hope you're doing well. We got another minute to go, so I'm going to take care of a few things here. Hang on one second. Monday, Easter, and happy Monday. How about that? Okay, so as you're logging in, I'm going to promote you. So let me go ahead and start that. Let's see. Excuse me. If you're just on your phone, I'll be basically just allowing you to talk, essentially. But if you're on your computer, you're going to be promoted. So let's see here. Beverly Miller, good to see you. Good couple of good. Hopefully the email came through, Beverly, and with some clarity. And I think you're getting your bearings, so that's great. Let's see. Good to see everybody, by the way. Jeff, good to see you. Looks like we would have two Jeffs. Or Jeff, you may have shared the link and someone log in as you, perhaps. How about that? Jeff Allen, hey, Jeff, today was a driving day for me. I did when I got here. I actually did get your voicemail, so I appreciate that. And we'll talk about that too. If not, I'll just give you a call back tomorrow. So, Leonilla, good to see you. Let's see. Liz, good to see you. Luann, always good to see you too. From the Lone Star State. Mo, good to see you. Off and running. So Mo says promote. I don't have the. Well, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. I don't have the normal promote button for you. I'm not sure why. Gloria, good to see you. I guess I'm promoting everybody to panelists. Usually it's different, a different message I get, but who knows? So Zoom probably changes things. We're not even aware of it. Randy, good to see you, buddy. I know we're speaking tomorrow, I think. So that's good. We're going to go into Real Flow, Randy, tomorrow, okay? Show you some stuff there. Shirley, good to see you. Steve, all right. We got the New York represented. Susan, congratulations, by the way. I'll touch on that in just a second. And Tom Silvestri, always good to see you. And I think that is everybody for the moment. Okay, so we are live and recording. Welcome, everybody. This is the weekly Monday Night Live class. I'm sure everybody knows by now, because we've been doing this for a month. We're always on Mondays, always 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. That's going to be 6 Central and 5 Central and 6 Mountain Time. So of course you probably knew that, but make sure you, by the way, if you're a current or past student, and more specifically, if you're on the Global Investor Agent team, you do have not only the right, but we've given you the right and the privilege to invite your guests. Could be other agents, could be investors, right? And I think we're going to see the ranks grow here rapidly, because we've recently added some folks that I've known for years. You're going to start to see them. One guy's name is John Perry, and we call him the Big Hawaiian with a big heart. And he's from Pennsylvania. He lives in a church. He and his family. He's kind of a neat guy, big investor, and very creative, very entrepreneurial, and very well connected. So he knows people all over the place. California, Hawaii, East Coast. So they're going to be joining us. So make sure you use that opportunity to do that. And really what it does, guys, is if you're out there working with investors, okay, getting them involved in learning, it can never go wrong. I mean, it endears them to you. It also enables a more profitable, productive relationship, okay? So you both know you're using the same terminology, same strategies, same tools. And you've always got this forum to come to. You can bring deals, and we've looked at deals on this class, all kinds of neat stuff. So in any case, without further ado, a couple things here. I've had some requests for me to talk about how do I actually organize here? How do I plan when it comes to working with investors? Because it's different than owner occupants, and it absolutely is. I mean, Jeff Allen's on the call. He's an investor. I'm an investor. Many of us are investors, and I'd absolutely agree. You know, our motivations as investors are completely different than motivations of owner occupants. Our criteria is different. Um, or the strategies we use are different. The analysis we use is different, right? So once we understand that, we can do a better job of working with each other. Okay. So, and I learned this a long time ago. I didn't have any grand plan. I was an investor first for 2 decades before I got my license. Finally got my license out of frustration. I realized why I was so frustrated. The agents weren't being taught to work with investors in the residential world. So I said, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll teach the investors how to invest. I already know how to invest. And I built a brokerage company and taught all those agents how to work with the investors. And, fast forward, here we are today. So in any case, let's go ahead and dive into it. Before I do, though, I want to just check and double see if anybody has any questions on anything we've spoken about in the recent classes, or any problem or challenge. If you do, just speak now, forever hold your peace.
I do have one quick thing, Gary. I'm in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
We're here visiting for the week. If there's anybody out here that we could say hi to.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, Sam Rahim is out there, and Melanie Abraham, she's out there, both in Austin. Okay. So Melanie's not on the team, but Sam is on the team. But either way, you can look them up and say hello to them. Both awesome, great people. And not too far from you is Augustin Zora. He's down in Harlingen, Texas. That's a little bit, maybe an hour and a half from Austin. So in any case, Austin's a great place. Okay, I want to give one big giant pat on the back before we get started here. So Susan Murray, if you could unmute yourself, I'd really appreciate it. I see your still picture. Let me just double check here. Ask to unmute. There we go. So guys, Susan, as of today, and possibly it was Friday, is officially capped. We got another capper on the team. And in fact, I just checked the numbers today. We got a few more that are like literally, Jamila Tunu has capped. She's in Houston. By the way, Susan's in Lynchburg, Virginia. And there's a few other people getting ready to cap. So we're, everybody's doing really well here, and I really appreciate the effort. And obviously the rewards are great for doing that. So in any case, tonight's subject, we're going to talk about planning, organizing, scheduling. When it comes to working with investors, I'm going to give you an actual plan to follow. And this is, and every investor should look at this too, because it's what I do with my investors. It's what I did for myself as an investor. Okay, there's a sequence of steps you follow so that you have a plan and you take action and you get results. Okay, so in any case, hi, Alyssa. It's funny. If you guys wait, well, if you see a cat going across like that, just don't worry, it's a real cat. She's actually a Sphinx cat named Josie. So, all right, let me share my screen. And I'm going to take you to, where am I here? Let's go to, there it is. Okay, so where you find this, and I put up the one here for working with flippers, because of course everybody's enamored with flipping homes. There is a set of instructions for working with landlords, people buying rentals. They're very similar, and I'll point out the differences, okay? I'm going to go over this step by step, and you'll know exactly what to do, how to prepare for working with your investors, and make sure your investors have every opportunity to be prepared themselves, okay? Now, where you find this is if you go to the website, realestatewithgarywilson.com, okay? And most everybody here is either a current or past member, okay? If you're not current, you may need to call Beverly or Jody, and there's like a monthly maintenance fee to and reactivate you. But then you get access to everything, the training material, the members area with all the calculators and spreadsheets and all the webinar recordings, all the websites we use, all the marketing campaigns. I mean, it's really cheap, and plus you get to be live on these classes. Okay, so in any case, this material is on the learning platform, and specifically in the program called Investor Agent: Make More Money, Not More Work. And this specific module is module 5. Okay, you can see right up here in the upper left-hand corner. Excuse me, sorry about that. It says module -5 PDF. There's 10 modules in that program. Module 6 is the steps you use to work with landlords. This is the one working with flippers. Okay. Now, before I get into this, I want to give you guys something to write down because it's not in these instructions. Okay. And what it has to do with is scheduling. Most of you know me long enough to know that I use this Franklin planner, right, for scheduling. I know it's a paper and pencil, and it's like, well, Gary, what about your smartphone? I still use my smartphone, right? But it's only as smart as I make it. And the point is this is, I do use Google Calendar, but in here I keep specific notes and specific information that I update on a daily basis, and a weekly basis, and a monthly basis. So at any given moment, I know exactly what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and more importantly, I know what the other people are doing that I'm working with. Okay, so one way I control that process and that flow is controlling my schedule. Okay, now this is going to be a challenge for some people because our world in real estate can be somewhat chaotic, and you got to move fast sometimes. I mean, we don't have the luxury of planning to see a property, 2 weeks in advance, because in today's market, it's going to be gone in 2 minutes, let alone 2 days. All right. So it is a bit of a challenge when it comes to traditional clients. But when it comes to investors, we can do these things. Okay. Because we're not always looking at properties that are on the listing services. In fact, I don't recommend that. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't recommend only using listing services. It should be one of your sources of properties for your investors. Okay. And in other markets, it'll be a main source of properties. In other markets, it will be a minor source of properties. Right now, I would say your MLS is a minor source of properties for investors, right? So, but I'm going to use the example of using the MLS in tonight's lesson. Okay. So in any case, back to the scheduling. What I do is I send an email out, and this is what you want to write down. Every Wednesday, I send an email out to about 10 to 12 investors that I'm actively working with, who I've already pre-screened, interviewed, and they're pre-approved if they're borrowing. And more importantly, I've qualified them. I know what they have in terms of cash. I know what they have in terms of their holdings, their other real estate, particularly where they have it, how long they had it, what their balances are, what their rents are, everything. I know everything about their holdings. Okay, and that's critically important. Okay, if you really want to serve your clients well, you got to know what they got going on. And by the way, if you want to see this in action, make sure you're on the webinar, the class that's going to be Monday, April 26th. Christine Hyatt's going to be on. She's one of my oldest agents from the old Win Realty Advisors real estate company. Okay. She's still in the business. She's a Remax now. And I think the last time I spoke to her about the transactions, I think she has something like 14 pending transactions right now. Okay. Individual solo agent. And we're going to bring on one of her clients, a guy named Benny, who's been moving from the smaller duplexes up to bigger properties. We're going to talk about that transition and how Christine's been able to help him do that. Okay. And you're going to see the relationship unfold right in front of you, an actual investor / agent relationship that's very healthy. And that doesn't mean it's always pleasant. I mean, they'll be the first to tell you, Christine says no more than she says yes to the deals that Benny sees. All right. That's a good agent. And as a result of that, I think they've done probably more than a dozen or more transactions together. Okay. So in any case, one way to help create and nurture and maintain that relationship is honoring each other's schedules. So in that Wednesday email, what I do is I send out to the 10 or 12 investors I'm actively working with who are ready, willing, able now. They've got the cash, the credit, they're ready to rock and roll. They can pull the trigger, they're decisive, and they know how to invest because we taught them. And what I do is I say, here's my schedule for next week. Now, my schedule was typically a half a day each day, 5 to 6 days a week. So I would tell them specifically in the email, I'm available next Monday morning, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday evening. I give them one evening a week, Thursday afternoon, and Friday morning because I wanted to be done Friday afternoon, right? And then every other Saturday, I would give them a half a day, right? If you notice in there, there was no Sundays in there. Did not go out on Sundays, okay? I know that's going to be counterintuitive to some of us, and it was when I first started it. But guys, I did it out of necessity. I didn't come up with that plan because I said I'm going to control these relationships. That's not what that's the impetus was. In fact, who wants to take a guess? What was the inspiration for me wanting to plan my time with my investors so that I was home most of the evenings and every Sunday and every other Saturday, and the other Saturdays was only half a day. So just take a guess. What was the reason for me doing that? Just type in your answer. What do you think the answer is? Why was I so intent and feel an absolute necessity for me to control my schedule? Don't be shy. Just type in the answer. I'm going to go to the chat box and see. Let's see how many current or past parents I have on the. You got it. Sean got it. Parents. Floyd got it. Children. That's why. I had sanity. Randy says sanity. That's true. That's right, Randy. Family, Tony, Kevin. Kevin Gibson, good to see you, buddy. It had to do with the family. Guys, when I was a kid, my dad was away for 1 year when I was 3 years old to 4 in Korea. And then when I was 7 to 8 years old, he was in Vietnam for a year. So I remember what that was like. And then things started getting busy for me. I was I was a banker and I was an investor and I got my license. And I was using my license while I was working with the investors initially. Finally, 18 months later, I left the bank. I was able to retire because of this, okay? And I remember thinking, I'm going to take full advantage of this. And I did it so I could be free and have my time free to do what I choose. So I walked my kids to the school bus every single day, all right? In fact, my son, when he was in 7th grade, said, Dad, I think it's okay if you don't walk me to the bus anymore. And I went to all those parents go to school days, did all that stuff. Thank goodness I did. They remember that stuff. But it was the kids, it was the family. That's how critical it was. But the funny thing is, guys, is so I send this email out. If you notice, only an average is 5 or 6 time slots available. And I sent it to 10 or 12 people. So what did that do for me? What type of scenario did that create in my clients' minds? What 2 things are actually famous marketing terms? What did I create when I sent an email to 12 people when there was only 6 time slots available and it was all happening next week and they had a few days? Scarcity and urgency. Steve Montemore says scarcity, most and urgency. You're absolutely right. Scarcity and urgency. I didn't know anything about marketing, but I learned after the fact that scarcity and urgency are very good things to have. Okay. So in any case, now what we did is this, and please, this is all being recorded, but please take crib notes. Okay. This is what I'm telling you here is not in what I'm going to go over here in the script. Okay. So in any case, what I did was once I had my schedule set and I knew which 6 people I was going out with, remember, I knew what they had. I knew how much cash they had, right? I knew what kind of credit they could get. I knew how many properties they had. I knew their cash flow. I knew their equity positions. And I even knew their families. I knew what would work for them, okay? So then I would go find the properties for them. Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? I worked most Saturday mornings when I could. When I was coaching soccer, I did every other Saturday. But I would find the properties for them and I would send them the properties in advance. And that's what I'm going to get into next. But before I get into that part, I just want to make sure everybody here understands what I'm doing. I wasn't doing it to be some kind of a control freak. I recognize the value of time for my clients and myself, and I wanted to make sure I used every moment as efficiently as I possibly could. So I wanted my clients to work with me and be prepared when I met them. So I give them properties in advance to go through. So far, everybody just type in if you're okay with what I've said so far about sending that email out. And by the way, they all were on, they all saw the other 10 or 11 people on the email. I didn't do the BCC. They saw each other on there. Okay. But I want to make sure you're okay. Just if you have any questions, please let me know and type them in or just unmute yourself and let me know. Because what I'm going to do next is going to take a little bit of time. All right. So speak now, forever hold your peace. Any questions? Okay. Okay, guys. So I'm going to close out the chat box. I'm going to only be able to focus on the screen here. Now, we do have a question coming in. I'm sorry. Let me just double check that. Whoops. So I probably didn't give enough time. Good to go. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, guys. So this is in Module 5 of Investor Agent training program. All right. Now, when I first work with somebody, initially what happens is either they're coming to my monthly investor group meeting, and now we call them gigs. We have gigs every month across the country, third week of the month. So what would happen is somebody would either follow with me from a gig, from an investor session, like an investor workshop, or they would see one of my listings and send me an email or a phone call. Somebody would refer them to me. However it was, they would contact me. All right. And I'd have an initial telephone conversation. Now, maybe they left a voicemail first and I would call them back, but I'd always try to do these initial phone calls in the evening. Okay. Usually had a couple every evening. Didn't take long. It was just an initial conversation. Right. And what I did here is, and again, you can take crib notes, but because this is all in writing, if I determine in the conversation that it's going to be a fruitful relationship for them and for me, right? It's got to be a win-win for everybody, co-symbiotic. I wasn't going to take on charity cases. I did that early on, and people, unfortunately, you got to have some cash and or credit. Okay, critical distinction there. In fact, I got to the point where I actually had a requirement that if they didn't have enough money for 4 average deposits, then they were going to have to wait, because I had enough people working with me. I couldn't take everybody on, so naturally I prioritized the people that were the most qualified. Now got my attention. Okay, the other ones I would nurture them and help them work with credit people and show them how to save money, did all kinds of stuff to help them. They could come to the meetings. They came every single month, right? And that's a great way to nurture people. So in any case, go through the conversation. All right, and here's some things I want you to write down because they're not in the email. On the conversation, I first build rapport. That's number one, build rapport. If you hear a dog barking in the background, ask them, hey, what kind of dog do you have? If you hear children in the background, hey, how old are your children, right? Be careful, by the way, don't ever ask how many children do you have. That can be construed as familial discrimination, right? So don't do that. Just say, how old are your children? And you can't get in trouble for that. And they'd say, well, there's 5, 7, and 9. And I'd say, oh, do they play sports? Yep, they play soccer and baseball. In any case, it gives me, it connects me to them. And it's all authentic and genuine. I need to feel that connection so that I can work hard for people. Okay, once I build rapport, let's say they responded to my booklet campaign, and the booklet contains samples of flips, all right? Or if I gave them 2 of them, one on rentals, one on flips, I'd have them pull them out and say, well, I want you to go through those while we're on the phone here. And of the ones that were flips, say their focus is flipping, which one seems like it'd be the one you'd like to have the most? Okay, now these are all closed transactions. They're not active. They're closed ones for the most part. Some booklets I'd put active in there too. But they would show me, and I would make note of that. And I would know which one appealed to them the most. And I would ask him, what was it about it? Was it the budget, the cost, the price the person paid for it versus what they sold it for profit? Was it the neighborhood? Was it the type of house? Did they just like the architecture? I would ask those questions and take notes. Okay. Now, any case, if they really didn't know what they wanted, and I would say, well, go please look through the booklets and compare. And I would say this: let's say you can only buy one property, and you can either buy a flip or a rental. Based on what you've seen, which one would you buy, or which one would you not buy? That was sometimes easier to ask it that way. Which one would you not buy? Because sometimes they can't. The human mind just won't cooperate. So if they can't answer when you ask which one would you buy, then ask them which one would you not buy. It works. Just do it. Okay. All right. You want to pin them down, because if you walk away from that conversation with the answer, well, just find me something that makes money, you're going to have a hard time. I'm telling you that. So how many of you have experienced that before? You work with a client, you can't pin them down, and all they can say is just find me something that makes money. How about some hand raises or type amen in your chat box? Yeah. It happened to me too, lots of times. So you got to get them to focus on one or another. Okay. Now, once I've done that, they're psychologically committed, right? Preconditioned to actually want to follow through and do the work. So then I would ask them, what do they have in savings? I did not ask them, how much money do you have? I would ask them, what do you have in savings? Okay. And I never got any rebuttal on that. I've had people say, what if they cringe and don't want to tell you? I'd say, well, I kind of got to know, because if you want me to go out there and go hunting for you, I got to know what to hunt for. And I would say, that's your ammunition. I need to know what kind of ammo you have, right? Big bullets, little bullets, lots of bullets. I need to know, right? And then once I had that, then I would ask them, do you have an available line of credit? Now, what's really important about the way I said that question, the way I phrased the question, I said, do you have an available line of credit? What would that tell a lender if a prospect wanting to get another loan had an available line of credit? Just call out what you think that is. And I can emphasize one word a little bit heavily there to give you some hints. So what do you think that is? Who's going to volunteer? Everybody's looking away from me now.
You've got extra money. Do you have extra money? Do you have money outside of a, bank loan?
Yep. You've got a line of credit that you haven't totally blown on cars and boats and toys. You've got some money left on the line. You can use it. That shows discipline, right? And it shows bankers that, you're good with your money. You're a good custodian. It also tells me that they have another source of a down payment. They can stroke a check against a line of credit like that, right? Okay, then I would ask them I would say, do you know what your credit score is? Remember, the way you use the way you phrase these questions are important. So I wouldn't say, what is your credit score? That's assuming they know. I would ask them, do you know what your credit score is? Which does not assume that they have one. So if they would say, I don't know, then I would say, would you please go and get one for free? It's easy. And then let me know. You can do it in 5 minutes. I'll wait for you. You can do it in 60 seconds, actually. And if they do know, they will tell you. They'll say, yes, it's 796, or whatever the number is. So I always will get the number, right? But I'll let them tell me volunteer what the number is. So if they come back and they say, yeah, Gary, I've got $50,000 in CDs and savings accounts, whatever. And I got a line of credit for 150, but I still have 100 available on it. And my credit score is 796. That guy goes to the front of the line, right? Now, let's say they have 2 of the 3. Would I still work with them? Absolutely. But if they only had 1 of the 3, I might encourage them to let's work on one of the other 2 factors first, okay? Like if they have cash but no credit, no line of credit, their credit score stinks, I don't want to struggle, and I don't want them to struggle. I would say, let's get you in touch with a credit guy, and within a few months, we'll have your credit score up where you need it to be, okay? There's some tricks of the trade. If you guys ever wondered about this, I know people in the business, and there are things that they can absolutely do, and I've seen it firsthand, where they can take your credit score and add 50 points very easily, okay? So in any case, I would do one of those things to get so people have 2 of the 3 criteria. That tells me I want to work with them. Now, here's the big deal. This is another thing I want you to write down because it's not in here. It's not on this chart here. I would ask them to please send an email to me recapping our conversation. Now, some of you on the call, you've actually heard me do that because I've worked with some of you in the past. And if you're one of my agents on the team, I routinely do that after a strategy call. I'll say, would you please send an email to me recapping our conversation? And a lot of people think it's because I'm busy and I can't remember stuff. And I will tell you, it certainly does help me remember stuff. But more importantly, who benefits more from writing that down or typing that in? That person, right? So what it does is it cements what we talked about, right? So we have clear communication. Plus, I get to read it. And I do get to verify it and say, yeah, we're in sync. We're on the same page. Okay, but it shows something else. What does it show about that person if they follow your instruction and actually do what you ask them to do? There's several things it shows. Just shout out what you think it is. I'll give you a second to unmute yourself.
They're teachable.
What's that?
They're teachable.
They're teachable. Thank you, Susan. Yeah. They
Also
also,
reliable and motivated.
yeah, they're motivated. They're reliable. They follow through. They take action. Okay. It's also a form of commitment. It's a small commitment. And what do small commitments lead to?
Bigger commitments.
Big commitments. Yeah. So all these things, and I wish I could tell you I was some kind of a genius. I'm not a genius. I'm telling you, this is all Gary Wilson's School of Hard Knocks, right? So I learned these things over the years, guys. And as I learned and studied, I realized it validated what I had learned in the real world. Experience is the greatest teacher. So take advantage of my experiences and just learn from them and avoid all the pitfalls and the heartache and headache. You'll go a lot faster, a lot further, a lot faster. So I always look for that. Now, what about the ones that do not email me? What about the ones that do not email me back? What do I do with those folks? Yeah, see, Susan's shaking her head no, and I agree.
Put them back in line.
I used to chase them down, guys. I think, you know what? I think that everybody deserves a second, third, fourth, fifth chance. And what does that demonstrate to you? What's it going to be like working with them out in the field? If they won't even follow with a simple 60-second email, what's it going to be like with them working out in the field? Like pulling teeth, struggle. I promise you. I had a family counselor tell me this one time. He said, look, believe people the first time, right? Whatever they show you behaviorally, believe that represents who they are. And just like everybody, your parents and grandparents told you in relationships, whether it's business or marriage, whatever, fall in love with somebody because of who they are now, right? Not because of who you think they can be, right? Same thing with clients. Fall in love with them because of who they are now, not because something you think they can be, okay? In any case, so far, everybody okay so far? Just helping you? It's funny because this is probably one of the most critical things I can teach you. Everything else is purely academic. This is behavioral. See, there's academic learning calculators and spreadsheets, and there's behavioral learning, which is how do you actually operate with somebody. And this goes. I've had several people ask me this, and I thought, let's go ahead and go over it tonight. Okay. So in any case, so far so good. And let me just check the chat box here real quick, guys. We got 13 chats coming in there. Let's see. Do the homework indicates lack of commitment yet? Amen, Gary. See, Mo's getting into the game now. She's got a couple of really good clients in a short period of time. And I tell you, the ones that you want to work with, the ones who are engaging with you and taking action with you, and basically showing commitment. Okay, so we're caught up. There was no questions here. Now, here's what I do, guys. I always give my clients enough instruction up front so that they know how to do a desktop analysis on a property. So if it's a flip, okay, they need to understand that what ARV is, which is after repair value, which is basically a marketable value. If a property was in marketable condition, moving condition, with no deferred maintenance, what would that value be? Okay, called ARV. I make sure they understood that. Then I would make sure they understood what maximum allowable offer is, MAO. That's the most they can pay for a property and still take a profit. Okay. Now my suggested profit margin is always minimum 20% with an additional 10% for overhead, carrying costs. You got to pay utilities or you got to pay commissions, transfer taxes, all kinds of stuff. Okay. So when I knew they understood that, I would give them the properties to look at. And I wouldn't let them, we didn't go by and physically look at the property yet. I would simply give them the properties that I found. Some could be on the MLS, some could be out of pocket deals I found, and I would send them a quick little write up. Okay. And I would tell them to go through the properties and narrow things down. So let me just scroll down here and we're going to get to this part of it. All right. So let's say I send them a selection of, let's just call it 60 properties, okay? They're going to go through the first pass of looking at the properties, and they're going to look and see what the owner wants for the property and what they believe is the after repair value for that type of property and that type of neighborhood. And if the clients were new, I would supply that to them. So it's like Susan, Jeff, I would actually go in and do some searches and send them a list of solds in that area for the same type of house, okay? So they would have something to go back on and realize, okay, on average, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes are selling for $250,000.
I have to listen to this.
Okay. Now, that's all he did. First pass, compare the asking price with the ARV. The asking price always had to be at or below the ARV to pass the first test. The ones that didn't, we toss them, send them away forever. Okay. Then we narrowed it down to say, 30 properties. Then on the next pass, we will look at more details, room sizes, lot sizes, property characteristics. Does every house have a garage except this one? Does this house have a garage when no other house has garages? You're looking for differences like that. What you're looking for is congruity. Whatever house you're looking at to flip should be within the range of the other houses in the neighborhood. Number of bedrooms, family room, size of garage, integrals, attached, 2-car, 1-car, things like that, okay? The thing is we're trying to narrow this thing down to say 10 to 15 properties, okay? And what I would do is I'd have them send me the 10 to 15 addresses that passed. By the way, I'd have them also do a drive-by. I should have mentioned that. So they would do a drive-by before they would send me the properties. Drive by the street, drive by the neighborhood, drive by the area, the property, and narrow it down. Then I would look at their homework and I would cut it in half again. I try to get down to somewhere between 5 and 7 properties, okay? Now, the reason I do that is I want to make sure I'm using my time wisely and I'm using their time wisely. So I'm not saying that they can't hit a home run every single time, but newer clients need more work up front, and it's worth it because you're showing them how to go through the process, okay? So then I would make appointments to go look at those, say, 6 properties, okay? And we go look at them and we take a half a day to do it. The client would be the one taking the pictures and taking the notes, not me. The client would do it, okay? I would give them the forms. I'll give them the forms to do it, okay? Now, in any case, at the end of the day, this is something really critical, all right? On the realestateWithGaryWilson.com website, if you log into the members area, go to the resource section and go down to marketing campaigns tab. In there, look for something called tailgate closing. And it describes what I'm going to describe to you next. Here's what I did. Once we looked at the 6 properties, all right, and now they had physical notes on the property. They knew, the roof was bad, the kitchen was old, the driveway had cracks in it. We would go through and fill those out, okay, and add everything up. Then we redo our MAO, our maximum allowable offer. And we would line up the properties side by side. I'd do like a grid, like 3 across, then 3 across. And I call it the tailgate close because just back then I was driving my pickup truck, 4-door pickup truck, 4-wheel drive. I took scouts in that thing and I held kitchens in that thing, kayaks, canoes, you name it. That was what I drove. We lay the tailgate down, lay the properties out, and I would say, okay, of these 6 properties laying out side by side, if you can only buy 5, which is the one you would not buy? And I'd take a big red, I had a red magic marker, and I would cross through it, big red X, and I would take it and ball it up and throw it, not on the ground, but in the back of my truck. Then the same thing again. It's like, now we got 5 properties left. Let's say you can only buy 4. Which one would you not buy? You see what I'm doing here, guys?
Mhm.
I'm narrowing it down using process elimination, all right? Ultimately, you want to get to no more than 3 properties and obviously at least 1, okay? And I would say, okay, I want you to go back home. I want you to rerun the numbers just to make sure you're satisfied to get everything completely identified and accurately accounted for. Email that to me, and I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock. That's what I would tell them. Give them time to get the kids in bed and have dinner and all that. I'd call them up and say, let's look at the 3 you sent me, or the 2 or the 1. If it was 1, it was easy. We just write up the offer and send it in. If it was 2, I would go through with them. This is where I would get more intimately involved and throw in my 2 cents worth, okay? Now, you're going to see on the 26th of April, Christine Hyatt is really good at that. She's a genius at it. She's going to talk about what she does with her clients, okay? And we do this exact process, and she says no to them more than she says yes. And that's why she's so popular. I mean, believe me, people want to work with her. So in any case, more on that on the 26th. Right now, what I want to tell you is this is, there's a bus going down the road, and if you're not the bus driver, it means somebody else is, which means you're not in control. So you need to be the bus driver, and you need to make sure you put the right passengers, i.e. your prospects and clients, on the right seats on the right bus at the right time. So when you do this, like, you would never at the end of the day, never ever say, hey, Jeff, that was a great day. Call me once you've made up your mind. I'm telling you, you just reduce your odds of success by about 50%. So don't ever do that. You go through the properties right there on the spot. You don't wait. You don't hesitate. You get on the phone with them that night. You narrow it down to the final 1, possibly 2, maybe 3 that you're going to make offers on. But you only make offers that the client can follow through with. I do not advocate making multiple offers and hope one sticks. Okay, that's bad practice. I don't do it. Never have. I don't advocate it. You pick the one that's the front runner. You make your offer on it. I write it up. I tell them I'm going to write up the offer. I'm going to email it to you, and give me about a half hour, 15 minutes, a half hour. In the meantime, please write a check for your earnest money deposit, and scan it so I can get a copy of it. And if you have a pre-approval for a loan, make a copy of that too. And I send them the offer, get them to sign it digitally, send it back to me, and by 10 o'clock at night, I'm submitting the offer to the other agent. And I email them and I text them, say, you got an offer on your table. Please respond to me 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, okay, once you reviewed it. And we give them a day. We don't give them a week. We don't give them 3 days. We tell them, this investor knows what they're doing. They're seasoned investors. I work with them. You know what? I know what I'm doing because I'm an investor agent. So you got 24 hours to review the offer and give us a response, okay? It's not mean. It's not hard. It's good old common horse sense, okay? Either they like it or they don't. The other thing too is, in today's kind of environment, guys, this is one of the dark sides of our business, okay? If you don't put a time frame on there, don't be surprised if some agent takes your offer and shops it around, calls all their investors, say, hey, I got an offer on this property. You know what, if you can give me 196,000, you just might get your offer accepted. They can't disclose your offer is, and they won't do that, but they'll say, give me 196, give me 214, and I think I'll get your offer accepted if you want to make an offer. So don't do that. Give 24 hours. They get 24 hours to respond to you, okay? Most times you don't have to worry about that stuff, but you know, I'm just giving you some frugal advice. I've had it happen to me, okay? And I don't want it to happen to you. So in any case, that's how you get yourself an offer in and an offer accepted. Let's say you get the multiple offer scenario, which happens almost every single time right now. Would you guys like me to give you a couple of tricks on how to overcome a highest and best scenario. All right.
Yeah.
A couple of things here. This is not in the materials. You're going to have to write this down. You guys, give me 1 second. I've got to promote some people. I didn't realize we had some more sign-ons here. Hey, Alexandra, good to see you. Actually, it looks like you're on here twice, and that's okay. Christina Coleman, good to see you from beautiful Atlanta. Jackie's other. Hey guys, we actually have a Jay-Z on the team. Her name's, she's a beautiful person named Jackie Zaldana, and I've learned to call her Jay-Z because it's in her email. Jay-Z is an excellent business person. He's a great businessman, actually. Lisa Sears, good to see you. Michael Johnson, good to see you. Sean Ritchie. Okay, good call today, Sean, by the way. All right, so back to this. I'll go from easiest to more difficult. One thing you can do if you have multiple offers is, if your client's able to do it, is dramatically increase the earnest money deposit. Don't just put down 25,000, put down 50,000, 100,000. I've made offers that were all cash before. Not because I wanted to be careless of my cash, because I knew I had multiple offers, and I would say, you know what, all cash, here it comes. And I would send them the copy of my bank statement to show them I actually had all cash. It wasn't a letter of credit. It wasn't a line of credit. It wasn't Uncle Bob's CD. It was actual cash, okay? And by the way, down markets, I use that too. In a down market, if I really want a really good deal, I'll go in 50% list price. If they want a 200,000 offer 100,000, all cash, 100% on the barrelhead, and it works. I've got them all accepted. Okay, that's the easy one. The next one you can do is this. On the price, everybody's going to raise their price. Just it's a given. Just accept the fact everybody's going to raise the price, and you're going to raise the price too in this scenario. Okay, but what I would do is this. Let's say it's a $250,000 list price. Instead of going to 300,000, which was what a lot of people will do, I'd go to $301,139.79, something like that. I'd go a little bit higher than the next big threshold. So you look at the next big threshold, usually it's at the $10,000 mark or the $100,000 mark, at another 1,000 extra, plus another 100 extra, plus another 50 or 30 or 50 or 70 or extra, and down to the penny, okay? And if you're wondering why, here's why. Number one, it gets people's attention. Instead of coming in at 300,000 or 305, they get this weird offer, $303,479.18. And I had it happen more than once. Let's say, why did you just go to the next round figure? And I would say, because my investor knows what they're doing. They got it down to the penny. They know what that property's worth, okay? And by the way, they got cash, okay? So that would elicit a response because it looks unusual. Everybody with me on that? Just a hand raise or a, yep. Now, the third one's a little more complex. So let me describe it to you first so you get the concept, and then you can take notes on it. What I would do is, let's say we're getting down to the wire. Let's say we went from 20 offers, we're down to 3, all right? And by the way, quick side note here. If you are a listing agent and you get multiple offers, absolutely every single time, issue the highest and best disclosure, okay? Disclose the fact in writing. Don't just call people, email them. There's a form for that. There's an addendum for it. Make sure they sign it. This is the highest and best scenario, all right? Please submit your client's highest and best offer in 24 hours from receipt of this notice, or tomorrow night by 9 p.m., something like that, okay? Now, what we do is we don't even just do that first step. We go from 20 offers to 5 offers, or maybe 20 offers to 10 offers, or whatever. I would do it again, right? I would say, you know what, we still have too many offers. We got to narrow this down. Once again, please give me your highest and best scenario. Now, let me do a quick litmus test here. Show of hands here, or just call it out, unmute yourself, or type in the chat box. if you've ever been called upon to do highest and best twice on the same property. You did it the first time, and they actually come back in with another one. Has anybody ever seen that or had that happen then? Nobody? Let me see here. All right.
I have, I just had it happen on my bank property.
Oh, Lisa, how you doing? Good to see
I'm
you.
good.
Yep. Now, let me ask you, it happens more often than you think, and it should happen a lot more often. But would you agree that's a pretty smart thing to do for the listing agent on behalf of their client?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And you said it was a bank property?
Yeah, this was my bank property. They asked for highest and best, and I sent
Yep.
it in and came back and they said, they're doing it again. So we sent it in a little sweeter.
Yep. So guess where I learned that from?
Where?
From when I was working at a bank.
Aha, that makes sense.
And we used it when I was selling all those REOs for Fannie Mae and VA and Freddie Mac and all those guys. We did it at least 2 times. So don't be afraid to do that, guys. If you're a listing agent, do your seller a favor and get more money for them. Okay. Plus you get more commission. So in any case, let's say we're down to the final 3 offers, and I know we're there. We're probably within a few $1,000, so they wouldn't be doing this. Okay. I would send the next offer in with this. So just imagine your settlement sheet. You got the buyer side and the seller side, right? I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller Agent, my client, my buying client is going to assume all of the expenses of the sale from your seller, including the commission, transfer taxes, you name it, the whole kit and caboodle, the whole shoot match. Okay. Now, we didn't just do that carte blanche. What we did is we did the math on the transaction. And what we're trying to do is net out the offer, right, and account for the additional expenses for the buyer so that the net is a little bit more for the seller. But here's the big benefit to the buyer, 2 benefits actually. Number 1 is all those things that would have simply gone against the cost basis for the seller, right? Most of them become actual current year tax write-offs, expenses you take in that tax year for the seller, okay? And let's say they're in a 25% bracket, and let's say the buyer assumed, $20,000 in additional expenses, commission, transfer tax, you name it. They're a 25% tax bracket. That means they're going to get 5,000 of that back at tax time. So what that means is we can net out the offer to give the seller $5,000 more because we know the buyer's going to get it back at tax time. So that's probably enough to beat out the other 2 offers who have no idea that this method actually exists. Okay. And as many times as I've taught this, you'd be surprised how many people don't ever use it. It's one of the coolest techniques I've ever seen. I use it even when there's no multiple offers. I use it when my buyer and seller are within a few $1,000. I'll whip out that technique and say, look, I'm going to get you across the finish line. You're going to have to wait 6 months before you get your tax return, but you're going to get your money back. Okay. Sometimes we split it down the middle, but just give me a show of hands, guys. Sorry, Luann's got a question. Luann's asking, so as a buyer's agent, do you give highest and best first or hold some for next request? Well, that's a good question, Luann. See, most people on the call here never heard of that before. That was only Lisa. So what I told my clients is that you go for, if you want the property, you go for what you can go for. But remember this, I'm an investor agent. So I do tell them, I caution them, I say, look, you got to be careful that you don't go over your MAO, max allowable offer, because now you're cutting into your profit on the back end. If it's $1 million property, they got room to play with. But if it's a $200,000 property, that profit margins are already smaller. And if you're not careful, you cut into it, and then one big mistake like a new roof could cost you the rest of it. So unfortunately, when the answer is going to be, it depends on the client and where you are and how much of a profit margin there is and the total overall price of the property. So the more expensive the property, the more room you have to wiggle there. The less expensive, less room. Also, the buyer themselves just might not be able to do it. So I actually, what I'm getting at is I would actually not hold anything in reserve when you got 20 offers. If you've only got 3 offers, yeah, you could hold some in reserve. But with 20 offers and your client really wants the property, you got to compete. So you got to kind of go for the gusto, you know? So Christina, when you asked me to repeat, was that the, what part? Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself so I can hear you.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on your last example. I really just don't understand. If you could just repeat the last one.
You mean the whole thing about the buyer assuming the expenses for the seller?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part,
Oh.
but just the thought process behind it, I just need you to repeat that again, please.
Oh, well, the reason you do it is, let's say you have multiple offers and if you're selling listing agent, you should always do multiple offer, highest and best scenario, do the disclaimer or disclosure, excuse me, and go 2 rounds. As a buyer's agent, I know most agents won't go 2 rounds. Most clients, they don't even know to do that. So I'm generally have 1 round of highest and best. So what I would do is I would tell my clients to go for the gusto. If they really want the property, you gotta throw all your, put your cards on the table, so to speak. Now, if I know the listing agent and I know they know what they're doing and there's a chance for a second round, and let's say there's only 3 offers left, I will tell them hold a little bit in reserve, okay? But if there's 20 offers, I would say you gotta throw your cards on the table. It's too many. You got a greater risk of losing this deal if you don't throw your cards on the table now, okay? And if it comes to a second round, they may have to bite the bullet and use one of the other techniques, like raise the down payment, other strategies like that. But as far as holding I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what I meant was when you said to pay the closing costs for the seller,
Yeah.
and then you said that to use that technique because the buyer would be getting the
Yes.
advantage. That's the part that I meant. That could you explain
Gotcha.
that part?
Okay, so if you look at a settlement sheet, you look at an actual settlement, the seller, a lot of those charges go against the cost basis. Then their net profit, their capital gain is calculated based on the net. Whereas with a buyer, a lot of those can be used to write them off as an expense in that year, not part of the cost basis on their purchase. So they can take their tax write-off that year, and if they're in a 25% tax bracket, they will recoup 25% of those additional costs, right? So if they put in 20,000 extra, if they paid 20,000 more in expenses, at tax time, if they're in a 25% tax bracket, they'll get 5,000 back. So that means the margin of difference between the buyer and seller, the buyer can then give them a net of $5,000 more on the initial offer. So the seller feels like the net is what they're getting. So see, a smart agent will focus on that. Don't focus on the gross price. Focus on the net receipts, the net profit. When you focus on that, this technique will make more sense to a seller, So that was really what I meant by that. Christina, does that help? It's one of the things you sometimes just try it. Just call me up. If you want to try it, I'll walk you through it, on an actual deal.
Barry, can I recap that and make sure I get it?
Yep.
So first of all, you have them hold in reserve. So they've got this to come forward with at the end. So they're going to bid up to whatever they could get and then still have this whole thing available, right? That's the first part of it.
Yep. This
Okay,
last
and then,
tick, yes.
So the tax part I don't get. So, all right. So the sellers are going to pay taxes on their net. So if they're paying less closing costs, yes, I can see how their net is higher. How is that a benefit to them?
Well, remember, you got to lower your offer price too. Yeah, so you really don't, it's not like you keep the offer price the same and you assume that extra 20,000. What you're looking for is what's the net difference. If the net difference is 5,000, like if the buyer assumes 20,000 in cost and gets 5,000 back, then what you want to do is you want to lower the price
Okay,
not 20,000, but 15,000, right? So you lower the price 15,000, right? The buyer takes 20,000 expenses. So the net is you just raised it essentially by 5,000, right?
right.
But the buyer gets that back at tax time. That's the magic. Yeah.
And the seller, where's the benefit to the seller? Because they have a lower net, so they pay less taxes.
Correct. So if let's say you have a $100,000 property with 20,000 in closing costs to the seller, their net would have been 80,000.
Right,
Now what you're saying is you're going to offer them 85, but
right,
you're going to take the $20,000 of closing costs from them.
right. I'm with
So
you.
the
Thank
true
you.
net is 85.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So they got 5,000 more on the net side, and then the buyer initially paid 20,000 more, but they get 5,000 back at the end of the year. So it's a wash to them, So
Hey, Gary,
yep.
is there any scenario where you would write a conventional offer where you would not bring in some creative financing to benefit your seller or buyer? I mean,
If I
given
was
the
offering cash, yeah, I would.
circumstances.
Yeah, if I was offering cash, it'd all be a moot point, But yeah,
What
that
if
would
it's
be a
not?
scenario.
What if it's just even a conventional? I mean, is there a way to structure a conversation where you would, uh, you know, bring in some creative financing?
Well, you could. You could. Now, remember, if they're getting a underwritten loan, the buyer's going to get a loan that's underwritten. It's conventional conforming, for example. The lender's not going to let them do a lot of other creative stuff. They'll let you do owner financing up to 10%, right? They'll say, okay, we'll let the owner give you a 10% loan. You got to still put down 10% yourself, and then we'll still finance the other 80. So let's say theoretically, your buyers offer them 10% down and they're going to finance 90, but they're getting highest and best offers and they got to go higher. They don't know what else to do. They can say, we'll give you $10,000 more on our offer if you, the seller, will give that to me in the form of a loan. You'll take a note back on the property for $10,000 that I owe you $100 a month or something. Now, you guys don't have to write this part down, but if that was me, and it was a bigger property, we've done this before, we would really sweeten the pot and give the seller a bigger note, okay, or a higher, really high interest rate that then they could go and sell on the open market. So Alyssa Getzoff is on the call tonight. She works with notes. She knows how this works. Not a perfect scenario, but if you can offer them a note with a high interest rate, interest rates right now are still only 3 and 4%. Let's say you give them a 12% note. Who do you know in this world would love to get 10% on the money right now to something secured by real estate? Heck yeah. So you see what I'm saying, Jeff? You could do something like that. And, the buyer, unfortunately, is going to pay 12% to this other person, but still the seller feels like, okay, I can cash that note out, get my money right away. And it's enough for me to sell that, to do that deal. So that's one example, but there's so many ways you can get creative. And we'll do a class. We've done classes on those before, like wraparound mortgages, blanket mortgages, things like that. But we're already, it did take all night because those are the whole subjects in themselves. But on a conventional mortgage, just remember, you're going to be very limited by the lender as far as how creative you can be. Yeah, there's laws about that stuff. So Kevin's asking, I work with a lot of buyers, not investors. How do you feel about using an escalation clause in a multi-offer scenario? We use them, but unfortunately, they also get ignored sometimes. So Kevin, have you ever had one that got ignored? Like you submitted a escalation clause and you find out later on they took another offer anyways. And if you keep track of it, you see the deed recording, it goes in the MLS and you find out, man, they took it for less money. And maybe you never know why. Maybe it was an all cash deal or something. But I'm not opposed to escalation clauses. I just know that they don't always work. If they look good on paper, hey, we're guaranteed we're gonna get this property because we just said in the offer, keep escalating this till we get the deal. And what happens is usually people resort to the highest and best scenario, regardless of your escalation clause. That's what happens. And like right now, we're getting one property last week down in Pensacola, Florida area where David Edwards is. David called the guy and he said they had at the last count 122 offers. So in that case, they're just going to ignore the escalation clauses and say, you know what, just give me your highest and best in 24 hours. That's what happens. So Susan's saying is cash really very strong? If I know an investor is very solid, I wouldn't mind having my sellers wait 2 more weeks for a higher purchase price. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Susan. I mean, to be honest with you, if you're getting offers coming in like that, now at some point the offers will stop coming in, and there are limitations. You can only hold out for so long. I mean, some people like me will put in their 24-hour turnaround on my offer. You got to let me know in 24 hours. Other people don't do that for some reason. I don't know why, but I see what you're saying. I would say cash is always strong, and I'm going to use this in terms of business. I don't mean this in a broader sense of what's important in our lives, but in business, cash is king. Always has been, always will. And I'm a business person, and I've seen a lot of deals go down where the seller took a lower offer because it was cash and they waived contingencies. They didn't have a mortgage contingency. They didn't have an appraisal contingency. They didn't have an inspection contingency. It was all cash. There's nothing they couldn't lose. So that's why, let's see, because it avoids your offer, if sellers won't make a decision in 20 hours. Yeah, it does. I mean, but what it does, it puts pressure on them because maybe my offer is actually the best offer, and I don't want them shopping that thing around. I'm gonna let them know our offer is strong. I know it's good. 24 hours, that's your shot. Because my buyer doesn't just buy here in Lynchburg or Virginia Beach. My buyer buys all over the country. He's cash. If you want cash for your seller with no contingencies, here's your guy right here. And by the way, guys, none of these things are perfect silver bullets, but there are unique, and there are things that most other agents just don't do or won't do, especially when you net out the settlement sheet that way. I mean, that's a creative process. And we don't even use it all the time, but we pull it out when the time's right. So in any case, guys, we're kind of went over here a little bit, but did you like this discussion? We kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there at the end, but it's going to happen. So I wanted to throw that in today, and not just give you the meat and potatoes of how to structure your relationship. So let me see if Jeff Allen's still on. Hang on one second here. Let me do a stop share. Let's see if Jeff is still in here. Okay, I don't see Jeff. I see Jeff Johnston. Let me go to the second page. We got a lot of people on tonight.
He was here before. He was here earlier.
Yeah, because he's not an agent. He's an investor. Hey, Bill Gilmore, can I pick on you for a second? Let me ask you to unmute.
Okay.
So, Bill, you've been in business for a couple of years now. You and your partner. When you look at, say, a cash offer, and they're waiving contingencies, the buyer, and you're representing your seller, and it may be lower by, say, maybe 5%. Let's just go extreme here. So on $500,000, that's going to be $25,000 less. On a scale of 1 to 10, how many people would you say would take the cash offer, even though it's 25 less than the next best one, but has no contingencies? What from your experience, how would you see that being viewed?
What are the contingencies?
Yeah, no. So the other offers have financing contingencies, sale of another property. Now they got to have an appraisal because they got a loan.
Well, if it's sale of another property, yeah, they wouldn't even consider it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that wouldn't be considered at all.
Yeah. Or home inspections. Let's just narrow it down to a financing contingency with an appraisal.
In today's market, the appraisal is always going to be an issue. But you're not going to, in today's market, you can't go in at 5% less. We're getting offers that are going to be, that might be 2 or 3% less or at market or above.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we got to go in with my investors. We got to go in strong, and typically we go in, it's cash and no contingencies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't mean to say 5 off a list price. Like, let's say the price was 450 and everybody went to 500, except the one guy that doesn't need a loan. And I picked the example to make it so it wasn't easy, because
Yeah.
it's not easy. 25,000 is 25,000. I don't care who you are,
Right.
But at the same time, we know appraisals aren't going to come in where we need them to be. And if somebody doesn't have the contingency waiver where the buyer has to kick in the extra money, like in writing, that's not as strong an offer,
Right. That's what for those, if we're on the listing side, yeah, we make them sign a thing that they're going to pay the extra cash if it doesn't appraise. That's the
Yeah.
only way we'd consider it then.
Yep.
They'd show us that they had the cash to do it.
Yeah. So does that make sense, guys?
With you,
If I,
yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Bill. Yeah. Now, if I'd have said 1%, the answer probably would have been a lot easier. But the thing is our world is not always cut and dry. Sometimes it's like you got to really do that, like the decision matrix analysis, and look at, what's the upside potential on the good side and what's the downside risk on the negative side, and compare the two. And you got to, sometimes there's not a big difference, but you got to make that gut call and go with it, So I'm always doing upside potential versus downside risk on all those kind of things. And downside risk can mean a number of things. If you're around in 2007 in Florida, between late August and early October, we're talking about a 6-week period. That balloon crashed like a ton of bricks. It was fast. I mean, there was no time to prepare and do a lot of analysis. It was just catastrophic. I'm not saying it's going to happen this time. We don't know. We always seem to be surprised by things, but nonetheless, we know we're headed for a correction. I mean, we're already starting to see landlords starting to sell their single-family homes. We're seeing that across the country. They're getting ready. They're cashing out on the single-family homes now, because regular consumers are silly with their money. They're not frugal like the investors. They can't help themselves. So they're going to take the profit while they can instead of waiting and taking a risk. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I just know that I'd rather be prepared with these strategies, So, hey guys, we're starting to run a little late here. I apologize, but this was a great call tonight, great subject. And I feel bad I did a lot of lecturing there in the beginning, but I appreciate your participation when I asked you for questions and raising your hand and stuff like that. Next week, Gina Hansen's going to go over how the disc profile actually works and what it means, because we've had a couple of suggestions and questions on that. And she's going to pick some guinea pigs from the group here to do that on. And it's for investors and agents, because you need to be able to read people. You got to understand what motivates somebody else and what makes them tick, okay? And if you understand a disc profile, it's one of the most fundamental things you can learn. It'll serve you well, because no matter what you're doing in life, you're always buying or selling, right? You're always selling something. You're selling a vacation to your spouse. It's a great lesson. We should probably do more often. And please remember, the end of the month on the 26th, Christine Hyatt and her client and my coaching client, Benny's going to be on. He's the investor, Christine's the agent. And you're going to get to see a live in-person investor-agent relationship. We're going to talk about what happens in the field when Christine says no, right? And things like that. And what did she do to encourage Benny to go from a duplex to a 14-bed property like that with confidence, okay? So these are the things we need to know, because our clients want to do better, which means if they do better, we do better, right? So, okay, guys, any final questions, comments? Speak now. Let's see, we do have some, I'm sorry. Okay, let's see. Kevin Gibson, here in Michigan, we're seeing new listings that already have a call for best and final offer after 3 or 4 days. Yeah, and I tell you what, Kevin, we're seeing that on the first day in some other markets. It's crazy. Yeah, look at Luann. She's in Texas, right? I mean, one day out, boom, it's highest and best right off the bat. Amy, good to see you. always. How do you find a list of properties to work this process when things are going so quickly? So Amy, we have to use our secret sauce formulas. We got to go under the radar screen and go look at the tax records, the eviction records, the divorce records, things like that, and use our lead gen system, lead pipes, to get the bankruptcy and foreclosure leads. And even the landlords who have single family homes, we can easily identify them with our lead pipe system, and we target them specifically. So we have to be the ones going to get the inventory. That's where they're literally, it's rolling up your sleeves and putting on your work boots, and that's where it shows up. So we have to be the guys and girls to go out there. By the way, guys, when I say guys, I mean everybody. So, but so remember that. Use the techniques, use that lead gen system to go directly to the owners and be the agent who creates the opportunities. And you don't have to put them on the MLS. I would encourage you to, but in today's kind of market, my gosh, it's okay to take on a few off-market deals. Your clients will love you for it, but when you do that, you've got to then supply them the information, right? You can't, they don't have a listing to look at, so you have to supply them the information. But Amy, that's how we do it. It may only be 10 properties, but 10 is better than, 5 that are getting 50 offers on them, Great question, by the way. Thank you very much. So Kevin, cash offers in this market are almost impossible to beat because of concerns about appraisal. I agree, Kevin. And it's like that everywhere, man. I'm telling you, it's like Bill said down in Florida. He's on what's called the Gold Coast area, Stewart and Port St. Lucie and all that. And it's not the most expensive part of Florida. It's gone up a lot in the last few years, but it's one of the more affordable areas. It's the same problem. Liz says, this is wonderful. Nancy Lou, thank you. You're welcome, Nancy. Hey, Nancy, are you on board? Are you on the team? I can't remember where we left off. I apologize. So text me, call me, email me, because I need to get there's some exercises I want to give you to get you into this stuff and get you the systems and the data and the lead sources. So in any case, guys, it looks like that's it for the questions. I really appreciate you participating so actively. Remember, please email me with any other suggestions you have for topics to cover, okay? For those of you who are running a global investor group, we're gonna have a special session just on that. I'm gonna be getting more involved directly in those going forward for the next probably 6 to 9 months, excuse me. There's a huge opportunity there, and I wanna help you guys succeed as much as possible. So in the meantime, I hope you had a wonderful Easter with your family. It's a great time of renewal right now. I mean, this is it, rebirth and renewal. Seize the opportunity. I mean, I said this to somebody in a message, my team message is look outside and look at all the flowers starting to come up, the tulips, the buds on the trees, and use that to inspire yourself, right? Just reinvigorate yourself. Get a call going with me. I'll help you out, okay? Now's the time to do it. And when you know the market's going to turn and you don't know when, this is the time to prepare. Don't wait. Do it now. I've been doing this is my 5th market cycle. And I'm pretty sure what's going to happen, and I want you to be prepared for it. So let's work together. Meantime, take care of yourselves. God bless you and your families, and I will see you next week. Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Bill,
Thank you.
on this week, I'm in a computer. Hey, Bill, shoot me a text, Bill, or I'll shoot you a text. And I've got some time on Thursday and Friday, or in the evening, really, for that matter. Just let me know, Bill. All right, guys,
Okay.
take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Oops, I gotta turn off the recording.